Greetings, YouTube. There's a grave that I visit regularly, and it's a boy. He's 9, and his name's Calvin. And Calvin died more than 100 years before I was born. And next to Calvin are 3 of his siblings, and all of them passed before they turned 18. And then next to those siblings, the last sibling, are his 2 parents who died as adults. And I think the oldest sibling made it to like 17, but never quite made 18. Though at that time, 17 was pretty much considered an adult anyway. But if you go to old cemeteries, ones that have graves from the 18th and 19th century, and particularly if they're large enough so they could go, instead of gone from like the 19th all the way through the 20th, you'll find a lot of children. I mean, a lot of children. And then in the 1950s and 1960s, the number of child tombstones, child graves, drops off precipitously. There's a reason for that. Because it was in the 1950s and 60s that we really got a good handle on how to develop vaccines for the diseases that were killing children. I can remember being a kid in grammar school, and they had just come out with a new vaccine for, I believe it was swine flu, and it was a big concern at that time. And I had been a person that I was taking monthly injections because of allergies. So once a month, I got an allergy injection. This is back before oral allergy medications were all that common. So I was taking a monthly injection. So when it came to getting a vaccine at school, I was like, yeah, whatever. I literally do this once a month. And I had some of my cohort would literally pass out from getting an injection at school. But they did that. They held a school assembly, and they lined us up, and nurses gave injections to every single kid in the school. And no one batted an eye at it. And none of us got swine flu. Interesting that was, a direct connection there. But at the time, it was considered a big issue. So they were concerned, rightfully so. When a disease jumps from the non-human animal portion of our biology to us, it can be a major problem because we don't have any defenses against that. So unless we develop a vaccine pretty damn quick, you can get a whole lot of sick people. And when you get a whole lot of sick kids, you can end up with a whole lot of dead kids, because kids don't tend to have immune systems nor constitutions quite as robust as adults. It's one of the reasons you also want to make sure that elderly people are fully vaccinated for the same reason. Their constitutions just simply aren't as robust as they were in the prime of life. And yet, sometime from when I was a kid until the present, we've become skeptical about vaccines. And I've talked about this on my channel before. In fact, I just posted one not long ago, and the responses were both horrifying and entertaining, because the number of people that know absolutely nothing about how vaccines work, do not know the history of vaccines, do not know that the degree of research, that vaccines are literally one of the most well-researched branches of medical science. In my opinion, probably the most well-researched branch of science when it comes to medicine, is vaccines. It's also important to note that we have had public policy that mandated vaccines. And the first president to mandate a vaccine for U.S. troops was George Washington. Smallpox at that time. And smallpox was a devastating disease at one time. We have reduced it to something that is now considered relatively rare. Of course, that was until like Andrew Wakefield came around and began the whole vaccine skeptic movement. So now we're seeing diseases that had been essentially eradicated blossoming back into the public sphere and costing the lives of children. and making adults ill, which is, impacting their short-term lives. They can't work, they can't go to school, they can't help take care of their families or themselves, and long-term, because there are diseases that will debilitate you forever. I got lucky with my first bout of COVID in that while I have suffered long-term effects, they have not prevented me from still getting to work, still doing the things I want to do. But I do have a tone in my left ear now that doesn't ever stop. I can hear it right now. It's super annoying. And I have cognitive issues. That's why occasionally in my videos you will see me stop and try to find a word. It's not because I'm pausing dramatically. It's because I can't think of the word. I know the word. I mean, if I'm looking at an object and I can't remember the name of that object, I know what the object is. I know what it does. I can describe it to you. I just can't remember the word. And that's the side effect of a disease, because I had not yet had the full booster for all the COVID shots, because it was a multi-stage process, and I hadn't had them yet. I think I had the first one when I got hit, which is the reason I didn't get hospitalized, but it still kicked my ass. But kids don't get their vaccines. It's going to kill them. And recently, Ron DeSantis, who is an endless font of stupidity and bigotry, has decided that he doesn't want his state to be mandating childhood vaccines, which means there are going to be kids that don't get any vaccines. And as the number of children goes up that don't receive vaccines, you increase the pool of humans that the disease can breed in. Without the vaccine there to prevent it, you're going to have more and more kids become infected, which means those kids that haven't had the vaccine because they're too young, because they may have a legitimate reason not to get it. There are medical reasons you don't want to have a vaccine. It's just very uncommon. Or they're new to the country and they haven't had an opportunity to get their vaccines. It's going to mean that they're going to be passing that disease on to people and killing them. Even if the child that has the infection doesn't die, doesn't have any long-term health effects, they make it through the gauntlet of whatever that disease is that they didn't have a vaccine against because their parents decided that they can't trust the science because their parents don't know what the science is. They could still kill people. That was one of my greatest fears when I've had COVID, that I have given COVID to somebody, and if I didn't harm them, I could have harmed someone else down that chain, because I became a vector. And where that disease goes after me, I have no control over. So the best thing I can do is make sure it stops at me. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you do the research. I want to be fully informed. See, I also want to be fully informed. And one of the things I want to be fully informed is I want my immune system to be fully informed. So I want my immune system to have the best possible dossier it can about the diseases in the world around me, which is why I get every single vaccine that I can get into my system. I want my body to know how to look for pneumonia, how to look for shingles, how to look for COVID or the flu. I want my body to know what it's looking for. So when that thing shows up, my body can say, hey, I recognized you. Get the hell out. And that's all it is. Your vaccine is like that little picture by the side by the register that says these customers are banned, that we will not serve them. That's exactly what a vaccine does. It's telling your body how to prepare and what to do when the disease shows up. And the nice thing about it is that in the case of strains, even if you don't have the specific vaccine to that strain, that you have any of the vaccines will give you an edge. You'll have partial knowledge, and partial knowledge is better than no knowledge. So the people in Florida are foolish. I know that these parents think they're doing the right thing. They're wrong. And I understand the psychology about why they're doing this. If they take an action and something happens to their kid, they will feel responsible for that. My child, this happened to my kid, I gave them the vaccine, and even if that vaccine had nothing to do with what happens to their kid, in their head, they're seeing that connection. But if they do nothing and their kid gets a disease, and whether the kid survives it or not, at least they will not feel responsible for whatever happens after that infection. They are absolving themselves of responsibility. They are guilt-proofing the process. But you're not raising a kid, you're raising a human. And throwing a human out into the world unprepared, when you had the chance to prepare them, when they are your legal responsibility, in my opinion, is medical neglect and child endangerment. So I've said it before, and I'm going to say it now, and I hope that the people who actually bitch about my videos on this topic have listened to all the way to the end, because I'm going to say the thing that they hate so much. Vaccinate your kids.